In the days of the prosperity of Tasmania's west coast, when rails crossed every river and tunnelled under every hill, the next broken hill was thought to be discovered many times. By the early 1900s, towns had sprung up all across the once empty and desolate lands, necessitating infrastructure development of the likes Tasmania had never seen before. Under the shadow of Mount Farrell, loads of galena were found, and thus a town was born. A plan was hatched, and so the town of Tullah was born. This is the story of the Tullah Tramways. In 1892, a man named Tom Farrell discovered silver lead ore, also known as galena, on the slopes of a mountain in the west coast of Tasmania, later named Mount Farrell after him. Several years later, the North Mount Farrell Mining Company was formed to mine galena in the yet unnamed area. Their first galena ore was shipped out of Tullah in 1899 with great difficulty, as pad tracks were the only transport method in that region of the west coast at the time. That, however, was about to change. The Emu Bay Railway opened their 3'6" heavy rail line from Guildford Junction to Zeehan in December 1900, which instantly shortened transit times for ore massively, as it passed about 10 miles from the town later known as Tullah. In 1902, a wooden railed horse tram was constructed in a northward direction from the town currently known as Mount Farrell to Bocco Siding on the Emu Bay Railway. The tram could carry the loads and was quite efficient, but as produce from the mine increased, the horses could no longer pull the weight of the galena up the steep grades, and a solution was desperately needed. In 1908, the Dunkley brothers, a well-known group of railway construction gangers, were hired to construct a steel-railed steam tram from a new dedicated siding on the Emu Bay Railway known as Farrell Junction to the mine works at Mount Farrell. Work was soon underway, and the tramway opened on November 13, 1908, although official service did not start running until early the next year. Interestingly, Farrell Junction siding, originally known as Bocco Siding, spelled with a K. On an unknown date, this was changed. Farrell Junction was located halfway up a 1 in 40 grade on the main line, and installing trains, especially steam, was very difficult. The tramway originally operated with 3 locomotives. 2 Krause locomotives named Puppy and Number 9 were used on the line, as well as an unnamed steam locomotive built by Orenstein and Koppel. The tramway was a huge success, and as the only link from Mount Farrell to the outside world, as the horse tram was closed, it was well patronised and very busy, both with passenger and mineral traffic. Unlike many mining towns on the west coast, Mount Farrell did not fade out quickly. The galena ore was rich and plentiful, and the town's population grew rapidly. In 1900, the Mount Farrell Post Office opened. In 1910, it was renamed the Tullah Post Office, signifying the widespread use of the name. The name Tullah, first used in 1901, is a local Aboriginal term meaning meeting of the waters, as before the damming of the Pieman River, it was at the confluence of the Macintosh and Murchison rivers. Tullah prospered through the next few decades until 1932, when the North Mount Farrell mine closed from financial difficulties during the Depression, as well as a lack of galena. In 1934, it reopened after finding new loads of galena close to its original site. The tramway was hastily extended to the new site, which became known locally as New North Mount Farrell. During the 1920s, the tramway acquired several more locomotives. Vintage Romeo, the only diesel locomotive used on the line, as well as Wee Georgie Wood and Wee Mary started running on the line during this period. Wee Georgie Wood is the only surviving locomotive in operational condition as of 2025. Sadly, the time of the tramways in Tullah was drawing to the end. In the early 1960s, construction began on the Murchison Highway, which would link Rosebery to Guildford, finally building a road link to the west coast from Burnie. In 1962, the first phase opened from Rosebery to Tullah. Immediately, the North Mount Farrell Tramway was curtailed from Tullah to Farrell, being reduced to a kilometre-long track between the mine and the town centre. In 1964, the highway was extended to finally link with Burnie, and in the same year, the last section of track closed. Ever since, the section of track between the Murchison Highway and the old mine has become part of the Murchison Dam Road, with the exception of a zigzag, which remained separate as the road could go straight up the slope. This is not the end of the tramway story in Tullah, however. In 1977, the Wee Georgie Wood Steam Railway Incorporated was founded by volunteers from the region to restore Wee Georgie Wood locomotive to a working condition and open a section of track through Tullah. Tullah had grown massively since the mining operation closed down, due to a major development by Hydro Tasmania to the south of the old tramway station. The suburb now had a population of over 2,000. It was distinctly divided into the older northern area and the newer southern area. After the Pyman and Anthony power schemes were completed, the town was largely depleted of population and nowadays only houses about 200 people. By 1985, the Pyman scheme was completed and most of the old tram alignment had been flooded over by Lake Rosebery. Only a small section of track in the town remained beside the zigzag, and that section was opened in 1985 as the Wee Georgie Wood Railway. The Heritage Railway has prospered since, celebrating the 100th anniversary of Trams in Tullah in 2002, celebrating Wee Georgie Wood's centenary late last year. To celebrate this, the trams are running at double the frequency this summer season until April 25th, last day of the season. While that brings us to the end of the North Mount Farrell Tramway story, it's not the end of the tramways in Tullah. The North Mount Farrell Tramway was not the only tramway in the Tullah area. There were 3 others. Firstly, the small ones. The Sanitary Depot Tramway ran from Arnold Street to the Sanitary Depot to the north of the town. The second was the Murchison River Mining Association Tramway, which linked with the North Mount Farrell line at Tullah Station before turning into Madden Street, which was the main street of Tullah at the time, and going down the middle of that street until just past the junction with Charles Street. There were plans to extend this tramway several kilometres to new mining fields on the southern side of the Murchison River, but this never eventuated. The last tramway to be mentioned was further afield, branching off the Emu Bay Railway at Chester Siding about a kilometre from Farrell Junction. This 2-foot-6 gauge tramway ran up the steep Mount Kershaw to the mining town of Chester. This town, along with its mine, went nowhere, and the tramway closed shortly after opening, as well as the aerial tramway nearby. It is not clear if it was horse-drawn or steam-powered. This basically brings us to the end of the Tullah Tramway story. There are vague plans by the Wee Georgie Wood Railway to extend their tramway south along the shores of Lake Rosebery, but no direct routes have been shown, so it's really just guesswork of that. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you next time on Tasmanian.